All right. Hi, folks. If anyone is out there, I hope you like this lighting situation that I have going on. It is currently 6:02 p.m. in Mountain Time where I live, and the sun is due west, and it is coming through this tiny, tiny little row of holes in the blinds, and it's landing right on my face. So I could we could do a little, maybe we'll do this. Maybe we'll do this. You get a little taste of my tubs storage situation over here, which is not preferable, but it is what it is. Here we are. Thanks for daylight savings time, or thanks to daylight savings time. It is still sunny out at this time of day, which is very refreshing and lovely, but it is causing some problems, technically speaking. So, anyhow, hi, anyone who's out there and watching. Thank you for joining me for the second reading from Maids, a tale from Existentia. This is my second novella in a collection that I'm calling Tales from Existentia. The collection is more or less a collection because it shares a sensibility of absurdity, weirdness, and yet also strangely realism. I am not exactly what I would call a genre writer. I don't write in fantasy or horror or sci-fi particularly. I write from my own very strange point of view, which tends to fall into the category of absurdism and surrealism, but again, not really genres. So I try to describe what I'm talking about using other terminology, and I hope that that sounds fun to you. Oh, hello, Shadowwind. Hello, Jael. Thank you so much for being here with me on this lovely day. It actually is really gorgeous. Today is, I think, the second day of spring, technically, in 2023. It has been an exceptionally long and very cold, very snowy, very icy winter here in Western Montana, and it's finally above 50 degrees during the day. The snow is melting, and the birds are actually singing. There's some grass growing. It's a very exciting time. And I can't believe that I'm inside with the blinds drawn, even though it's so nice and sunny out, because if I don't draw the blinds, I get some of this going on my face. So, today I'm going to be reading part 2 of my story. It is called Maids. Maids is about 2 roommates and 17 monkeys trying to share space and find connection in their life. And they are sharing a 2-bedroom apartment in naturally shenanigans ensue, lots of shenanigans. The last time when we read part 1, about 2 weeks ago, we were introduced to Leo, who is the main character of the story. He is the narrator, and he is a fast-talking, kind of a con man. I don't think that he would identify himself that way. This is probably the first time he's really undertaken a large con, but he is... that's his personality. His personality type is a con man, whether he's actively conning someone or not. He has recently purchased 17 monkeys that are now living in his apartment while his roommate has been away for her sister's wedding. She is due back to the apartment tomorrow, as of the time we left off the story, and he has been busy getting the monkeys ready to start up a monkey rental company that he is calling Primates. Oh, I think we're about to get a visit from my cat. Hang on. What are you doing, buddy? He was sleeping on the windowsill over there, and he just came down. Oh, he heard me talking about him. Now he's not going to let you see him, but he's right there. So, Primates is off to a good start. It's the first day that Leo is renting out monkeys for events, and he's sent them all off to their gigs, and I believe that that is where we left off the last time. So, I think Well, maybe there will be further ado. I don't know. I'm not feeling 100% today. I'm a little spacey. Got a little bit of the old brain fog going on. So, hi everybody. If anyone out there is watching and wants to say hello or has any questions, wants to know more about any of this before I get into reading, now's a good time. I'm going to take some tea from my giant teacup. It's so big. Like I can fill the entire tea kettle and pour it all into this cup. It's wonderful. JL said it doesn't hurt to give folks time to show up. You are correct. And it also doesn't hurt to give myself time to relax. I wasn't exactly ready for this. I do everything at the last minute. I don't know how anybody's ever prepared for anything. It's like rushing around the house, like brushing hair, putting on makeup, and like trying to remember where I had the files I needed to bring up. I'm a mess. Shadowwind says, "Oh, I like your giant teacup. Thanks. Wait, this was actually a gift. JL and I just bought the condo that we live in, and this was a gift from our realtor. As a, I don't know. I guess it would be a housewarming gift if we were just moving in. But, Chal, are you going to come say hi? Yeah. Shadowwind saw your ear. Everybody knows that you're sitting right there. He's like, no, I'm waiting until you're right in the middle of reading, and then I'm going to put my butt in your face and sit down right in front of you. That's his MO, as I think it is for most cats. But I don't know if all cats are computer geniuses like Chow. When he steps like across my keyboard, he can do amazing things with his toes or his tail or his butt. Like he has actually turned my screen display sideways several times. I don't know how he does it. And then I have to I have to Google on my phone how to unturn it sideways and then try to navigate like this to figure out how to press all the buttons and find everything that I need to turn it back upright. He's a whiz. Yeah, right, buddy. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes he types messages to people also. They usually have like, 14 R's and a 4 and a K in them or something. What do you think, Butter? You're going to make a cameo? No. All right, well. Monkey has shrunk everything before, but she has never turned things sideways. Shrunk everything. Oh, yeah, he'll do that too. Sometimes suddenly the screen just gets bigger or smaller when he walks across the keyboard. But of course, he has to walk across the keyboard. He couldn't just walk on the desk in front of the keyboard. Oh, no. That would be breaking cat law, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he made the text all teeny tiny. How do they know? You're so good at stuff, Chow. All right. Okay. I think that the light situation has changed a little. Well, it's not terrible. Okay. Okay, folks. It is time. Oh. See? You see? He's pressing buttons right now. He almost opened up an article on Ramadan. Okay. Stop. Come here. Nope. Okay. A visit from a furry friend. You better lie down. Now he's sitting on a chair next to me, like plotting his next move. Perfect timing, yeah. Oh, Chow, I think you're missing some squirrel activity out there. Should have stayed up on the windowsill. The squirrels are very much enjoying early spring. They are extremely active, if you know what I mean. Oh, wink. Okay. All right, here we go. I'm going to start part 2 of Monkey Maids. So we start on chapter 4. All right. Is everybody ready? Do you have your popcorn? Are you prepared? Jail is still inviting folks. Oh, should I wait? What do I talk about? What do I do? I'm not a very experienced streamer. I don't know what to do to keep people occupied. I don't have any of those cool redeems where like you can make me do something using your like loyalty points or whatever. So I guess I could just, I don't know, do a song and dance or something. Tell us what happened in part 1, previously on Monkey Maids. Okay, so part 1. We come into this whole story when Leo has just fed the monkeys a box of cheese noms because he thought that they would like it, and they did. They loved it. And then when the cheese noms were gone, the monkeys started getting into fights over the crumbs. So when we open in part 1, there's utter chaos going on all over the kitchen. Meanwhile, Leo is taking a call where he's trying to book a client to rent a monkey for the evening. The client is going to a high school reunion and wants to have a monkey on his shoulder. And Leo thinks that that's a stupid idea, but that's, his business model is renting monkeys for pretty stupid things. So then he proceeds to get the monkeys ready for their gigs that night, starting with Lambert, the golden lion tamarin, who is going to the high school where the monkeys came from, how long they've been there. 5 days. They came from a ad that Leo found in the back of a comic book from the 90s, which may or may not have been Mr. Guy Zombie Hunter. And he is also reflecting on his roommate who is gone at her sister's wedding. She's been gone for, I don't know, a week or so. And he basically got bored and started reading this comic book. And before you know it, Bob's your uncle, and there are 17 monkeys in the apartment. So they've been there for about 5 days, and he has been training them, by which he means pretty much just letting them do whatever they want and getting to know them. And now they're going out for their first gigs. And that's pretty much all of the story action that happens the first time around. It's really sort of getting to know the monkeys and getting to know Leo. He has a run-in with a client named Daisy who comes to pick up the female spider monkey for an LGBT like charity or benefit. And Daisy seems very suspicious of what's going on. So Leo has to really turn on the charm to convince her that it's fine, that this is not like an established looking business, that this is clearly a residential address and that there are a bunch of monkeys in there. And it works. So he rents her Sandy, female spider monkey of a mated pair, Sandy and Danny. And then I think that's pretty much where we left off. So let's see. Did I miss anything? Anybody remember anything that I left out? So we've got Leo is the guy. His roommate's name is Liz. We have not met her yet. She is still on vacation. She's coming home tomorrow. Then there's Lambert, the golden lion tamarin. There's Sandy and Danny, the 2 spider monkeys. I believe Philo is the squirrel monkey, and we haven't really spent any time with Philo, but Leo has reason to believe that Philo is quite violent and kind of scary. Then I have a whole list of monkeys. I did so much research on monkeys for this story. Let's see if that's 4. There's 13 other monkeys. There are a few that are of the same species, but there's quite a wide variety of monkeys going on here. Oh, hi, Renamy. Thank you for joining us. You're just in time. I was about to start reading. Okay, Chal has lain down beside me, so hopefully he will stay there for a little while and not decide that he needs to rewrite the story while I have it up on my screen. Okay, folks, we're going to dive back in. It's time. The time has come. All right, so the very end of the last chapter that we left off on was Leo convincing Daisy, who was very suspicious about what was going on, to take Sandy and go off to the benefit. Chapter 4. I got everyone with paid gigs smoothly out the door after Daisy left. Even the reunion guy, John or Jerry or something, who had wanted the mustache monkey, was pleased with Lambert, the golden lion tamarin. He wasn't nearly as much of a frat bro as I had feared, kind of a nerd, in fact, and obviously nervous. Given the amount of time he appeared to have put into his outfit, hair, and beard, I knew I'd been right. He He was trying to impress a girl. He treated Lambert gently and kindly, so I felt okay about both the monkey he had rented and the girl he was pursuing. I sent him off with best wishes into the night. To celebrate our first successful evening as party primates, I got the remaining 10 monkeys settled into the living room, grooming and snoozing, and went grocery shopping. No dairy products on the list, of course, but I thought some top-notch fruity treats were in order. I concluded, as I perused the citrus, that 17 hardly tamed simians in a 2-bedroom apartment would be difficult to sustain. I'd been confident this venture would be profitable, as I'd collected payments for 7 rental gigs earlier. But now, looking at the price of blood oranges, I feared it might not pay off as quickly as I had hoped. At least, as long as I was only renting out a few every night. I'd have to keep these hooligans balls deep in fruits and veggies to maintain the peace, and that wasn't exactly cheap. But the fruit was just the beginning. Potty training was especially essential, as quite a few accidents had already made clear, and in the meantime I was spending a small fortune on the tiniest diapers available. Still, there was no way to make a human infant-sized diaper effective on a pygmy marmoset. Nor, I mused, was there a way for said pygmy marmoset to flush the toilet. That would take some figuring out. And while the guy who sold the whole troop to me had been right that they were well socialized, the little bastards had to learn quickly that I was not just in charge, but also beneficent. I couldn't deal with many more upsets like that day's fracas. The cleanup alone was going to be a monster. And then there were the modifications I was going to have to make to the apartment. I had grossly underestimated how much exercise monkeys need, and it was clear that we needed to install some climbing equipment or apparatus as soon as possible. Probably some kennels for timeouts when necessary also. Timeouts and probably some kennels for timeouts when necessary. Timeouts would have helped enormously that afternoon with the cheese noms. I pondered the fact that I had never learned how to determine if a mango was ripe or not, and decided that it was of the utmost importance that, as soon as she got back from the wedding tomorrow, the roommate be convinced not only to tolerate the monkeys in our home, but to also help me with them. Getting her explicit agreement to continue this venture would be essential, but it might take some work. Liz, though a generally agreeable person, was not entirely a pushover, as the past several months of our contentious cohabitation had shown. However, she did usually listen to my ideas, at least. She was creative enough to consider the possibilities of most situations, like my suggestion last year that we get an apartment together. To be honest, I'm not in touch with most women I've been involved with anymore. But even after she had moved into the other bedroom, Liz and I had been able to not only stay in the same apartment, but even continue as roommates and friends. Things were a little strained, of course, but while a lot of that tension was Liz wanting me to change my lifestyle, a lot of it was also about money. And the primates were here to help with that. If I presented the argument right, I could probably convince her of the merits of party primates, and that her help would not just be instrumental, but also fun. She'd have to see that we had a fantastic business opportunity on our hands, if only we were bold enough to jump on it. And maybe, working together with the monkeys, we'd find some common ground again. I didn't remember most of the debacle on New Year's Eve, but Liz had been there when I had arrived home, and so she had had to deal with the aftermath of whatever happened. She told me later she hadn't seen any cops, but there had been flashing lights outside. Apparently, I had said something about using an icicle as a weapon, but I wouldn't give her any more details, and since I had forgotten all of it by the next morning, we would never know what had really happened that frightened me so badly. Whatever the case, Liz had moved into the second bedroom, previously her art studio, the next morning. She had told me then that she couldn't be so close to so much chaos, and she was still refusing to give me any more details. After a few weeks, I had stopped asking for them. Her face would get hard when I mentioned it. I grimaced as I grabbed a kiwi and texted her now. "Do you think squirrel monkeys eat kiwi?" I said. "Or does fur deter them? Mock cannibalism? Question mark? Not waiting for an answer, I threw the kiwi into the cart. The fruit was a runaway success. Everybody enjoyed the mangoes particularly. Turned out that I had gauged their ripeness pretty well. And no fights broke out since there was plenty to go around. Nobody seemed to mind the kiwi, but nobody ate it either. Interesting. The guy who rented Lambert, Jordan or Jake or whatever, seemed happy with his purchase, if a little drunk when he came back. I hoped he had taken a goober or a cab. Thank God the Tamarin was not drunk. If he ingested more than half a shot, he'd probably have gone into cardiac arrest, and I would have been heartbroken. It was really taking a shine to the little guy. Daisy had apparently had a blast with Sandy the spider monkey, and she spent quite a while lingering at the door trying to talk her way inside. She said she wanted to say goodnight to her new friend, who had already hopped into the living room with a soft cry for what I was sure would be a joyful reunion with her mate Danny. I told Daisy as much, that we would probably want to give them some space while they re-solidified their bond. The process could get pretty athletic and what we humans would consider private, although the monkeys had no such compunction. But Daisy was determined to get into that house, mumbling about seeing my setup. I crossed my arms, solidly blocking the doorway. Daisy, I intoned with gravity, it's nearly 1 a.m. Most of these animals are just as diurnal as we are. Of course, I've worked with them on altering their circadian rhythms to allow for late nights, but trust me, you do not want to just waltz into an establishment full of tired, cranky monkeys without the proper training and maybe some protective gear. She huffed. Trust me on this, Daisy. It is not a good time. Well then, she began. I turned the knob on the door behind me abruptly. Feel free to call for another rental any time, Daisy, I said, and then slipped through the door into the mudroom as quickly as I could, loudly locking it behind me. I spent some time after that trying to teach the squirrel monkey how to use the toilet. Danny made a bit of a mess, but was nice enough to help clean up. What a guy. Then I had a few beers while reading the monkeys a bedtime story. Tonight's was a raunchy tale by Roald Dahl off of Liz's bookshelf. Who knew the guy who wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory had such a wicked sense of humor? By 2:30, the primates were all asleep, and I noticed a message from Liz. You really are into monkeys lately, it said. They are okay with cannibalism. I saw it on Animal Planet. I smiled at Lambert, snuggled up to the uneaten kiwi on my pillow. All right, so that's chapter 4. I'm going to take a break between chaps. Oh, hi, folks. Wow. Okay. Oh, hi. Howdy. Oh, hi, Tech. I'm glad you made it too. And Abstracto, hello. My goodness. It's like a party in here. Oh, I like kiwi. I'll take it, says Shadowin. They are kind of monkey-like, right? You know, like furry on the outside, all that. So, Tech, we are probably not going to get to the conclusion tonight. I think the conclusion will be in the next reading. So there's going to be 3 parts. This is part 2. Because reading much longer than like 45 minutes really wears out my voice box. It's a lot. Shadowin says, yeah, I don't usually eat the furry bit. Yeah, you know, I've heard that some people do. Does anyone here eat the fur part of the kiwi? I don't. I mean, it seems like the worst possible thing that I can imagine in my throat or my mouth. Like, it's very scratchy. But I think that I have heard that some people do that. I could be making that up, but I don't think so. Abstracto eats the entire kiwi like an apple, but what about the furry part? Doesn't it scratch up the inside of your mouth? Are you messing with us? Like an apple? Oh! I'm not trying to yuck anyone's yum. That just, I don't know, that seems dangerous. Nope, I don't really notice it. Huh. Wow. I don't have any idea how to respond to that. I feel like I'm seeing you totally differently now, Abstracto. Also, Abstracto eats the entire apple. Some people do. Some people eat the apple core. Again, I feel like it would just scratch up my throat terribly. I don't think I could do it. But now I need to know, Abstracto, do you eat the apple core? Do you swallow the seeds? Do you have apple trees growing in your stomach? I like to make eye contact with people when I eat the whole kiwi. I do not eat the apple core. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm just picturing this, like, abstracto just sitting outside in, like, a park, with, like, a kiwi in his hand and just, like, locking eyes with somebody that's walking toward him, just biting into it. Oh my god. Oh, it's cracking me up. Mm. Hmm. What other weird fruit things do people do? Does anybody eat, like, the peel of oranges? I think technically they're edible, just they're extremely bitter, so I wouldn't want to. Um, Abstracto says, "I attempted to eat the whole banana once and immediately regretted life." What does a banana peel taste like? I don't think I've ever even tried to eat one. Supposedly, I've like the internet has tried to tell me a few times that if you blend an entire banana with a peel on and then like drink it or something, that it helps put you to sleep. I haven't. That doesn't sound worth it to me. But also, if you drink an entire banana or like an entire cup of anything right before you fall asleep, then you just wake up later because you have to pee. So I don't see how that's helpful. Um, it tastes like instant cotton mouth, says Abstracto. Gross. Yeah, apparently the peel is edible. I think it's just I think a lot of peels are edible. They're just extremely unappetizing. Like like I'm sure that there are things you absolutely can't eat the peel, but I think a lot of them you can. And you just don't want to. Like maybe an avocado. I don't think you can eat avocado peels. Or at least I definitely wouldn't. They're really hard. But I also wouldn't eat a kiwi peel, so I don't know. I don't know anything. I have had kiwi skin before, but I don't normally. How? Like, I just feel like my whole mouth would be so mad at me if I ate a kiwi peel. Oh, Smithers tries to steal the peels all the time. Well, that makes sense. Yeah, that tracks. Oh, Smithers, your cat. Your cat. I was thinking of the Simpsons character, and I was like, yeah, totally. He's a peel stealer for sure. Jael says, I've definitely seen people bite into avocado skin. Really? Ew. It's like leather. Good. I also eat the leaves on strawberries. I don't take them off. Oh, I've wondered about that. Because it's kind of hard to eat around the leaves of the strawberry, but like they're all hard and they don't seem like they would taste good, so I always do anyway. Tech says I meant banana peels, not any of the other ones. Oh, specifically banana peels? That's so funny for a cat. Jalathor doesn't have much interest in fruit. But if there's like if you get those little mini oranges, he will bat them off the table. He's like, "What the fuck are you? I hate you." And he's not much of he doesn't bat a whole lot of things off the tables, like, but specifically those little oranges. He's like, "I hate you. Be gone." I've only ever accidentally eaten strawberry leaves. They aren't very yummy, says Shadowwind. Oh no, your dog, not your cat. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, dogs will take just about anything. Most dogs. I named him Smithers because he's a beagle, and I wanted to be able to release the hounds. Nice. My son peels grapes like some kind of psychopath, says Abstracto. He really does do that, though. Kidding about the psychopath part. That is pretty wild. That's so much work. But kids are so much less interested in eating than adults are, generally. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I would take, like, my mom would give me a bowl of, like, penne noodles or ziti or something, and I would literally spend, like, an hour annoying the hell out of everyone by taking each individual noodle on my fork and pretending it was an airplane and making it do a whole, like, flight pattern before landing in my mouth. And, yeah. Because I just was, like, not interested in eating the food. So I had to make it fun. For me. Literally nobody else. He's been tested. He's been tested for psychopathy. It's a good thing to test kids for early in life. I think if that's coming down the pike, you want to know about it early. Tech. People always forget I have a dog too. I have a whole You have a whole menagerie at your house, kind of like Leo and Liz. All right. Okay, folks, going back in. I think we have 4 chapters to get through today, and they're relatively short, but we got to keep on trucking. Actually, 5 chapters to get through. Here we go. All right, chapter 5. Hoots and screeches from the kitchen woke me up at dawn. This daily ritual was taking some getting used to, but as I stumbled up from my air mattress, I reminded myself that they were monkeys, they were mine, and they were absolutely worth getting up early for. Nobody else I knew had even one monkey, let alone a small army of them. Gratitude is key to a well-lived life, an aphorism I'd never truly understood until the primate variety pack had arrived. When I entered the kitchen, the morning grooming was just getting underway. With a yawn, I settled down next to Sandy, who let me groom her without even a murmur of disapproval. Before long, I had her mate working through my hair and the capuchin picking at my few days' growth of beard. I was surprised at how nice it felt. These simians knew what they were doing. With the exception of Lambert's panicked grabbing yesterday, and I could hardly blame him for that, they didn't yank or snarl, just gently picked through at the roots. I tried to mimic their actions and the soft noises they made, and I must have done okay. Sandy held still while I groomed her entire back. I was so relaxed in a few minutes that I found myself working through a second hairy back for a while before I realized it was Ernie, the common marmoset who had thrown a plastic cup at me yesterday at the height of the cheese noms brawl. We seemed to have made peace. I was thinking about the social importance of grooming in simian culture, given that monkeys born and raised in captivity don't have many bugs living in their fur, which led me to consider how much flea medication I would need to invest in once the weather warmed up. When I heard my phone beep in my pocket, I had very smartly changed the alert sound to a soft chirrup last night, hoping it would blend in with most of the monkey noises. I had been right. It was a text from Liz. Just got off the plane, see you in 2 hours. Oh, shit. I had forgotten she was taking the red-eye back into town. Oh, thank God for the long train ride from Midway, and that we were too poor for any other option, especially now that I had spent so much on purchasing the monkeys and feeding them. But if they kept earning like they did last night, we would be out of the hole in no time. Of course, that remained to be seen. It depended almost entirely on Liz's reaction to our new living situation, which we would get in approximately 2 hours. Well, if the monkeys and I had anything to say about it, she would be over the goddamn moon. Attention, I said with a loud clap. The roommate will not want to help us if she comes home to this mess, people. We are going to learn to clean right now. My announcement brought the grooming to a standstill and 17 pairs of beady eyes to my face. This was going to be fantastic. If only I had 17 tiny aprons. An hour and a half later, the great cleaning, as I had come to call it, was in full swing. Things had started poorly. We had first tried scrubbing down the bathroom with heavy-duty cleaners, but the fumes went straight to everybody's heads, and things got a little crazy between Francis the TT monkey and Lucy the vervet before I got the troop back into the living room and fresher air. I seem to have played my cards right, though, with kind and patient leadership of this motley pack. The monkeys mimicked almost everything I did and took directions surprisingly well. By the time I got another message from Liz, I had a working assembly line going on the dishes and another group cleaning up the fruit seeds and pits scattered around the kitchen. Polly, the rhesus macaque, and Philo, the squirrel monkey, the most go-getting of the bunch, were washing the kitchen floor with water and vinegar to combat any last remnants of urine, and doing a pretty stellar job, in my opinion. We had already picked up the litter in the living room and set things in order out there. I had almost tried vacuuming the carpet, but decided that things were going too well to risk upsetting the balance with the noise of our bargain store dustbuster. Maybe next time. The monkeys weren't too keen on getting their hands wet, I had discovered, but they were fine with drying, so I was washing a plate while pondering the prospect of making my own tiny diapers out of a napkin for the pygmy marmoset. And my phone chirped again. Liz's text read, "Just switched to the red line, almost home. How are the monkeys?" "Great," I wrote back. "They're doing the dishes." I got nothing back from her. Real quick break. That was a whole chapter. I just want to see what's going on. Honestly, peeling grapes sounds like the type of tasks one would be assigned in hell. That's exactly it. So, so the monkeys are doing the dishes, they're cleaning, all is going well. I think chapter 6 is kind of a long one, so I'm going to take a sip of tea and get myself ready for it. Okay, folks, here we go. Moment of truth. By the time I heard Liz coming up the front stairs, I was so inspired by the troop's cleaning abilities that I had decided to name our next commercial venture Monkey Maids. Once we'd established ourselves with party primates and were ready to branch out into daytime gigs, it would be a guaranteed success. Folks with evening events needed monkeys, of course, but so did folks with domestic daily tasks. From what I had heard, those were the primary decision makers in household budgeting. I had a veritable gold mine on my hands. But first, we had to convince Liz of our worthiness. When the outer door opened, we were grooming, in the living room this time, to show her how civilized we were. The unexpected sound startled all activity to a halt for a moment. I reproduced a purring sound that had calmed them down the last night and made a show of continuing to groom Thelma, one of the Talapoin monkeys, until the rest of the group relaxed and got back into the flow. Didn't want anyone losing their shit when Liz walked in. It would be over before it began if she got mauled. Hardly anyone even looked up when the interior door swung open, presumably after Liz had wrestled her large suitcase through the narrow mudroom and taken off her Doc Martens. Lambert was the only one interested. He jumped onto my shoulder and peered warily around my head. "I'm home," Liz said, seeming to have clocked my presence, but still focused on dragging her heavy roller bag across the threshold and setting it inside the door. "You didn't write back to my text. Do you want to go to a drink and draw tomorrow night at the—" Then she glanced up. Her face had been flushed from walking through the windy weather with a suitcase, but now her cheeks paled. "Leo," she said quietly, the two syllables holding an enormous amount of trepidation. Lambert squeaked inquisitively, and I gave him a calming pat. Liz's tension was palpable. I continued to groom Thelma as if everything was fine, although the eyes of the monkeys around me were whipping back and forth between the two humans in the room. These cretins took their cues from me, not her. I would have to take the lead in keeping this situation under control. Still, the shock spreading across Liz's face as she took in the room had my stomach in knots. She didn't say anything for a long time, just stared, her wide eyes landing on each primate for a moment, then finally resting on me. "Leo," she finally repeated. "Yes, Liz, hi, it's good to see you." I kept my voice pleasant, calm, and even in tone, hoping that she would get the idea, which I reinforced with a meaningful look. "You look like you relaxed on your vacation," I continued. "That's great, because we have a lot of work to do." This broke her reverie. Her head snapped up and her eyes narrowed, still locked on me as she gestured around the room. "Leo, there are monkeys all over the living room." "Yes, Liz." The corners of her mouth fluttered. I was uncertain whether a smile or a grimace was trying to emerge. According to my research, in most primates, a smile and a grimace were more or less the same expression, but one meant danger, and one meant danger was slightly more imminent. "The little guy on my shoulder is Lambert," I jumped in. "He's a golden lion tamarin, native to Brazil, so named for his elegant mane, as I'm sure you've guessed." Liz's eyes took in my little buddy, whose mane and body fur were positively radiant after all the care he had received yesterday. Her lips parted ever so slightly. "And this fine lady," I nodded toward the Talapoin in front of me, whose gray-green fur was puffed up, exposing her white undercoat. "This is Thelma, one of two Talapoin monkeys native to Central Africa. The other one is Louise, of course, over there." I dipped my head toward the couch, where Louise, ever the hard worker, was busily grooming the much larger back of Lucy, the vervet. "As you can see," I continued, but Liz cut me off with a gesture that was part frustration, part disbelief. "I really thought you were joking," she said quietly. I was impressed to note that she was also keeping her tone calm for the benefit of the primates, despite her obvious agitation. "I don't know why, but when I got those texts, I just thought, monkeys? No, not even Leo would be ridiculous enough to—" She shook her head and trailed off, her eyes once again scanning the room. "I thought, when I get back, maybe we'll go for brunch, catch up, get things back to—" Ricky, the guinan, puffed up his coal-black cheeks and flapped his arms limply. a gesture of frustration in the face of uncertainty. Clyde, the Capuchin, who had been grooming Ricky's shoulders, heaved an exaggerated sigh. Liz watched the interaction quietly, but when she spoke again, her voice started to rise in tone and volume. How the hell did you even get all these monkeys in here? This can't be legal. The tamarin was tensing up behind my head. I could feel his fingers fumbling in my hair. The male spider monkey left off picking through the fur on Polly the rhesus macaque's short tail and looked from me to Liz and back as if trying to choose a side. Liz, I said quietly, these monkeys have to be here. I saved them from certain death. The research lab at the university got shut down. They had nowhere else to send them. I took them all in. I had been banking on the humanitarian angle of this story clinching the deal, but Liz's eyes narrowed and her head cocked to the side. Wikipedia had told me that, in a spider monkey, this movement meant business. Are you shitting me, Leo? You have no license, no training, no facilities, nothing for keeping fucking primates in our grungy-ass two-bedroom apartment. She was waving her arms a lot, and the simians did not seem to like it. All grooming had ceased, and a few alarmed chirps sounded from the corners of the room. And who in their right mind would let you walk off with this many monkeys? You, with the drinking and the mental... Liz, really? It's fine, I interrupted evenly. My friend Johannes, you remember him? Tall, blonde? He worked at the lab, and he told me that these sweet babies would be put down if nobody took them. I remember Johannes, she replied curtly. The guy in your advanced vector calculus class? He works in a primatology lab? Shit, I hadn't realized she had paid that much attention when I introduced him. Just as a lab tech, I retorted with what I hoped was enough gusto. For the cash. She planted one hand on her hip and stuck out her chin, sucking at her upper teeth. My research had told me that most expressions involving teeth were signs of danger, so I soldiered on. They're all in good health, no diseases, born and bred in captivity, so they love people. Spreading my palms to indicate the whole place, I continued, they're smart, too. Look, they cleaned the apartment this morning just for you. I taught them how to dry the dishes and wash the floor in 20 minutes. Can you believe that? Liz did not answer, but I noticed how tightly clenched her fists were. Francis the Titi puffed his dark cheeks, and the night monkey gibbered softly to each other, conferring. The female spider monkey looked worried as she stroked her tail again. Seriously, Liz, relax, I said meaningfully, casting my eyes at the primates for her benefit. They're very sweet, but they're monkeys. They're excitable. You should have seen the fight over the cheese knobs yesterday. I spoke slowly to be sure she would get my point. We wouldn't want that to happen again. She glanced around at the 17 pairs of eyes, all fastened on her. Then she looked back at me, and I watched her force her body to relax, though her eyes were murderous. I suppressed a grin. I knew she had it in her. That's why I like Liz so much, I think. She reacts like most anybody else to strange situations, but it takes a lot to get her into full-blown hysterics. I mean, a lot. It's impressive. Let's talk about this outside, shall we? She intoned, smiling so hard it scared me a little. Again with the teeth thing. So we don't upset the monkeys, she said. I wanted to argue, but I remembered that I needed not only her complacence in this situation, but also her complicity. This was a team effort. I patted the capuchin and the squirrel monkey reassuringly as I stood up and handed the tamarin to the male spider monkey. I'll be right back, guys. All right, that's chapter 6. Very high tension going on in that scene. Whew, can feel the sparks flying. Hello. Oh, hi, Yuki. Hi, David. The teeth. Thank you, Shadowwind. So what do we think of Liz so far, folks? Do you feel like you sort of get where she's coming from, or do you think that she's being a little too crazy? Like, what's the verdict? Who are we? Well, we don't have to side with anyone, but who are we sympathizing with here, I suppose, is the question. By the way, update, Chalathor is now fast asleep on the chair next to me. It's very cute. He's like curled up in a ball, and he has like his little paw over his face. I'll see if I can. I'm probably going to mess this up there we go. See him? Kind of. I can't really lift the computer up too much more without knocking stuff over with the cord, but David says Liz is the character we needed all along. Yeah, the whole monkey situation is what happens when Liz is not around. Agreed, Liz is great. Hooray! I like Liz too. The neighbor next door is doing something loud. I'm going to just close the window. It's also starting to get a little chilly out, unfortunately. Okay. All right. So the conversation between Leo and Liz continues in the next chapter. Chapter 7. We stepped onto the front stoop, and I closed the door to the sound of a few soft hoots. When I turned to Liz, she had her arms folded. Not a good sign. This is going to be great, I started, but she cut me off. Leo! She threw her hands up. I don't even know where to start. Hey, look at the bright side, I countered. They're monkeys. Fucking monkeys, Liz. They're so cool, and they're ours. For several silent moments, she kept her face turned down so I couldn't make out her expression. When she spoke again, her voice was cold, like the day she moved out of my room. These are wild animals. I don't care if they've been raised in captivity. We don't have any sort of licensing to keep even one, let alone however many there are in there. 17, I provided. 17 monkeys. Why not? She fumed for a moment. Then, are you out of your goddamn mind? No, never mind. Stupid question. She threw her head back and blew out a noisy breath, arms rigid at her sides. Her cheeks were already rosy from her long walk through the cold, but I could see them blushing a deeper crimson now. She hated that she turned red so easily. I loved it. Hey, in my own defense, I countered, I didn't take all the monkeys from the lab. I know we're not equipped for large numbers. I didn't take any apes, even though I was tempted by the bonobos. Did you know that, Leo, she said evenly, unfolding her arms, monkeys are like children. They require constant care and supervision, and food, and... Now she was gesticulating. Why do I even have to say this? I cut her off. Look, I've been feeding them for nearly a week now. They all eat fruit, so it's easy. We've got plenty of space in the living room, especially if we buy some playground equipment for climbing or string up rope. I hated the fact that I wasn't telling her to move back into my room so we could convert to a monkeys-only space. We do have to teach them to use the toilet or get diapers, I continued, but beyond that, they care for themselves as a pack or whatever. I grasped her gently around the upper arms and looked down into her face, trying to catch her gaze. We can do this, Liz. Together, we can... She looked me in the eye then, and her gaze stopped me mid-sentence. When she was this angry, her eyes turned green, and sometimes flashed... When she was this angry, her eyes turned green, and I sometimes flashed back to those moments when we first met, the intensity she had hidden, that had done me in. That's not the point, she said, glaring up at me as she folded her arms again and broke my grasp, back on defense. We stood and stared at each other, me racking my brain to try to get at the point, her grinding her jaw in silence. Finally, she sighed. Leo, how do we afford this? We're barely scraping by, just feeding the two of us. I grinned. That she had even brought up logistics meant I was getting somewhere. Okay, I have all of this worked out, I replied. The monkeys in there made us nearly $700 last night, which more than paid for the fruit and the hair products. Well, shit, I forgot to buy more hair products, but yeah, $700 in one night. She eyed me skeptically and raised her brows in a go on way. Liz, I'm renting them out. It's genius. I put up an ad on Craigslist. Party primates. $75 an hour, $175 for 3 hours, or $400 for the whole night. She just blinked, so I kept going. No costumes provided yet, but if you have one, they'll wear it. They'll sit on your shoulder, take tips, run drinks, carry hors d'oeuvres, open the door, sit on the piano, just look cute, whatever you want. And Liz, I mean, I only started advertising yesterday afternoon and already made nearly $1,000. This could be huge. Liz's eyes still said murder, but they were returning to their usual smoky gray, and her arms were now uncrossed. You said nearly 700 last time. I blinked. Well, which is more than half $1,000. She rolled her eyes, but then said, That's pretty good. Almost half the rent. I felt a little flower blossom up inside my rib cage. I'm telling you, Liz, it's fantastic. And dude, today they cleaned the apartment. A little more training and we can start renting them out as, get this, monkey maids. Charge twice the regular rate since they're performing a valuable service, and then get them some little aprons. It'll be massive. You can quit your job, have more fun with monkeys than you ever did working at the dentist's office, and make twice the amount. This killer line of reasoning somehow backfired. I have to quit my job? She burst out. Bullshit, this whole thing is your idea. You quit school. I shrugged. Whatever, I'm just saying the money is going to be incredible. She launched right back in. Wait, did you say that you're advertising on Craigslist? Are you just letting any idiot off of the internet take them? They could get hurt. She muttered something under her breath that may have been fucking idiot, but I couldn't be sure that it wasn't something about the New Year's incident. She actually didn't bring that up very often, which I found quite gracious of her, but this situation was particularly tense. Liz, please have a little faith. Of course I vet people before they get the green light. I reflected that this would be a good idea, moving forward, as I reached out for her arm again. But you're right. I could use your help with that. You've got great instincts about people. That last line was golden. She frowned to cover a smile. I was in. Look, I moved a hand up to her shoulder. Just give it a try. Help me till you go back to work on Wednesday, and if you still think it's a bad idea, we'll call Johannes and ask for some help getting rid of them. She stared at me with wide eyes, probably startled that I had remembered when she went back to work, but she also seemed to be searching my face for something. I didn't put on any expression in particular. I didn't know what she was hoping to find. When she smiled at me, something opened in her expression that I hadn't seen for a while. Still, she snarked, Don't think this is going to last long, as we went back inside. So it seems like she's going along with it. I don't know. What do you think? JL says, I sympathize with the monkeys. Yeah, they're really the unsung heroes here. Tech says, I need a Liz. Yeah, we all need a Liz. Keep us on the straight and narrow. David says, yeah, the monkeys didn't ask for this, but they're making the most of it. True. Excuse me. Yuki says, I would be very happy to live with monkeys. I think that monkeys would probably be very happy to live with you too, Yuki. Monkeys do not do whatever you want. That's not how monkeys work, says Yuki. Yes, that is 1,000% correct. Tech says, this guy sounds like half my bad decisions. Yeah, he's pretty much the walking embodiment of terrible decision making, I think. David says, Liz is dope. She's got an open mind. Yeah, I think that's probably why she has been able to put up with Leo's shenanigans this long, but this shenanigan really takes the cake. It's like the tip-top uber shenanigan. So, I worked in a lot of Leo trying to read the situation based on his research from monkeys at JL's suggestion. And I think it's working. I would love to know if anybody thinks that I'm sort of relying on that a little bit too heavily or not heavily enough. Because I like the idea that, he might have trouble reading people. And so learning about monkeys has helped him with that. So, again, if you think that I'm overdoing it, let me know. Or if you think it's working, also, please let me know. Oh, this tea is cold. Okay. All right. We still have a little bit to go, so we're going to keep on trucking. JL says, I think you've done a great job with it so far. I would love to hear what anyone else thinks, too. Yes. Yes, please feel free to weigh in, folks. I'm doing this so that you can tell me what you think, whether it's good or bad. It's all legit. All right, Chapter 8. Here we go. The rest of that day went beautifully. I fielded calls for party primates, and Liz got to know the animals. She was astonished by the diversity of species in our little troop, and when I introduced her to Danny and Sandy, she corrected my pronunciation of Geoffroy's spider monkeys. Apparently, it's Geoffroy, not Jeffrey. How did she know so much about monkeys? Anyway, she took a particular shine to the squirrel monkey, Philo, and spent most of the afternoon with him on her shoulder. By evening grooming hour, she had taught him how to feed her blueberries. We gave out snacks to keep them busy for a while and set to work on pre-gig ablutions. It went a lot faster with 2 people. I washed them and Liz blow-dried and styled them. She bristled that I had used up all of her styling products, but agreed that they helped with our longer-furred friends. We had everybody ready to go before the first customer showed up at 6:30. Not bad, considering we had 7 paying gigs that night. 2 kids' birthday parties, a fundraiser for some knitting club or something downtown, 2 monkeys for a performance art showcase, a ribbon cutting for a hair salon, and a private soiree at some language professor's house near the university. Daisy had called and tried to rent Sandy again, but something about her tone had put me off. She'd been a bit too curious the night before, and she had been entirely too hesitant to part ways with her new bestie. I understood. Sandy was a sweet little lady, but Daisy didn't have an event to take her to. I was suspicious that she might just want to hang out. A monkey napper in the making. So I said that Sandy was busy with another gig and hung up. I let the high school reunion dude, on the other hand, take Lambert out for another night. I got the feeling that this dorky impress the girl scheme had worked the night before, and he had landed a date with his high school crush. I figured if he wanted to pay me regularly to make it look like he actually had a golden lion tamarin for a pet, he was welcome to. When she found out he had been lying, the whole thing would probably fall through, but that wasn't my business. He seemed responsible enough, and Lambert liked him. After we had gotten the working monkeys out the door, Liz and I went to the store for more fruit and got ourselves a few bottles of wine to celebrate our revitalized partnership. I didn't say it in those words, things were still too tentative, but I was optimistic. Sure, our relationship didn't look exactly like I had pictured it a half year ago, but there was something about any team-up between us that made me feel settled. We tucked the non-working members of the troupe into my room with the door closed before we left, Liz's idea. She said they couldn't have free reign over the apartment when we were gone, or we would be sure to come back to some shit-spattered hellscape. I disagreed. The monkeys were far more reasonable than she was giving them credit for. But she'd only hung out with them for a few hours and couldn't know them like I did. Plus, given that it was nap time, the thought of 10 monkeys napping on my air mattress was too adorable to deny. We aimed for the food holes a few blocks away, farther away than the cheap grocery store we usually frequented. I was feeling celebratory, and I thought the troop deserved organic fruit tonight. When we got inside, we split up. Liz went to find the human food and booze while I gathered fruit. I had learned enough about their preferences by now to load up a shopping cart with the finest, plus a few experimental items. Thus far, I'd only gotten a day's worth at a time, so I hadn't considered the weight of a cart actually full of fruit until I tried to move it. There was some grunting involved, a bit of swearing, and finally some kicking, but I finally got it going, at which point it picked up momentum faster than expected. Apparently, the grocery store's floor was on a slight incline. Before I got to the end of the produce aisle, I was moving at a brisk trot behind the cart, watching carefully, of course, but also enjoying the colors of the vegetables as they whipped by on my left. I grabbed a corner of the cart handle to bank the corner, trying to keep up the pace, and took off along the front of the store, narrowly missing a standing display of tomato paste and gluten-free pasta near the registers. I let go of the handle and pumped my arms in victory as the cart and I sped past the amazed onlookers in the orderly lines. Unfortunately, I had forgotten about the slope I was on, so when I let go of the cart, it took a subtle turn to the left and smashed into the display of fair trade chocolate and all-natural licorice by the last checkout line. Fruit and impulse buys flew everywhere, the citrus bouncing softly on the floor and onto the conveyor belt. The register girl started ringing the assorted fruits up without saying a word. The shocked silence of the shoppers around me broke into a subdued murmur as I squatted to pick up a grapefruit and recognized Liz's small black ankle boots coming toward me. I looked up to find her biting her lip in a half-laughing, half-disapproving expression. I liked that one. In my defense, I told her as I straightened up, I was left unattended. She pursed her lips, still fighting a laugh and trying to look annoyed with me instead. About 2 months back, she had expressly forbidden me from grocery shopping alone after I had come home with 10 cans of Spam. The 10 for $10 sale had been a fantastic deal, I said, but she maintained that we would never eat that much Spam and that I couldn't be trusted. I thought my week of solo shopping for a troop of monkeys proved otherwise, but she sighed and picked up a few bunches of grapes out of the candy rack. I sighed too and dug my wallet from my back pocket, realizing that I didn't know how we would get roughly 120 pounds of raw fruit back to the apartment. That's chapter 9. Quick break. The next chapter is quite short, so I'm going to power through. Thank you, JL. You don't have to heat this up. There's barely any left. Okay, Shadowwind says, I thought that was great too. Seems really in character for him. Oh, thank you. Good. Okay. David says, I genuinely think the writing and you reading it is really engaging. I think the details really help me visualize it. Thank you. Yuki says, poor Liz. She has her hands full. She really does. Yeah, it remains to be seen if she's gonna actually put up with it or not. She's willing to give it a try, but yeah, it seems like she's got a house full of monkeys plus Leo, who might be the biggest monkey of them all. Thank you, Yuki. All right. Okay, this is the last chapter for this reading, and then we're out of here. All right. Chapter 9. On the walk home, laden with many heavy bags of fruit, Liz suddenly regressed. She was smiling, but she meant it when she stopped walking and said, I can't believe we're doing this. Why not? I countered. The monkeys are happy. There weren't even any fights today. And we're happy. We get to go hang out with monkeys. It's beautiful. It kind of is, she replied. But it's too beautiful, Leo. I mean, she gave me a bald look that showed completely unguarded trust in me. I appreciated that look, but she never seems to be able to keep it on her face for very long. Right now, though, I basked in it. This time, I was determined to make it permanent. She shook her head and raised her eyebrows. What if we get back to the apartment and they've all started a massive shit-flinging fight in your bedroom? I shook my head. Shit-flinging is just a myth. Monkeys only fling shit if they have nothing else at hand, and even then, only if they're agitated. They were calm as could be when we left, and they're certainly napping by now. And in the long term, if we make sure to spend as much time with them as possible and work toward the overall peace of the group, no flinging needs to happen, shit or otherwise. She pursed her lips and said, Then why? I nodded, anticipating the question. I only tell people they fling shit when they get drunk to make sure nobody feeds them booze at their events. She nodded soberly, and we resumed walking. After a while, they'll learn to behave, even when we're not around, I continued. You'll see, they're smart. And they want to please us since we're their troop leaders. As long as we make these first few weeks good for them, we're home free. She pursed her lips in silence for a few beats. Yeah, home free, she mused, then stopped walking again. That's a bit of a problem, though. Home. We're not equipped for a troop of monkeys, Leo, and the people who come to pick them up for gigs are going to notice. Hey, it's a big city, I countered. We'll blend right in. People get away with crazier stunts than this every day. She scoffed and started walking again. Doubt had crept into her expression, but still, there was no anger, just fatigue. It made me remember those first few nights together, the wideness of her eyes, the energy. They'd seemed blue in the dark. I shook my head to rally my thoughts to the present. Seriously, Liz. Last week, I read about a guy keeping a 14-foot alligator in his studio apartment. He had it for 8 years. We don't have any 14-foot monkeys. She shifted her grocery bag to her left hand. No, but we do have 17 less than 14-foot monkeys, all of whom have opposable thumbs. One of these days, that macaque is going to figure out the doorknobs. I stifled the snort of laughter that threatened. She pronounced macaque like macaque instead of macaque. I didn't correct her. The fruit is really fucking heavy, she said. My hand hurts. Let's take a breather, I answered, pulling over to an empty stoop we were passing. We sat down in unison on the third step, and I set down my fruit, then reached over and grabbed her hands. She started to pull away, but then sighed and let me massage them. Liz, I rubbed her palms with my thumbs. I understand your reservations. I do. But I've thought about this. It's going to be great. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes shifted down and away. You thought us moving in together would be great, too. She pressed her lips together as my hands went still. I said nothing. She removed her hands from mine gently and turned away, wrapping her arms around her torso. I felt as if I'd been punched in the stomach, but I forced a grin. But we have monkeys. Things are fantastic with us living together. She was silent for a moment, working her fingers into the material of her hoodie. When she looked back up at me, her eyes were blue and wide. Well, here's hoping, she said, then picked her bags of fruit up again. I didn't know what to say, so we walked back home in silence. When we got back, most of the troop was indeed napping peacefully on my air mattress and scattered around the floor of my bedroom, except for Clyde the Capuchin, who chittered scoldingly when we walked in. Unaware of the upset it would cause, I tossed him the star fruit from the top of the grocery bag. You would have thought I had crowned him the Prince of Primates because his absolute shit, shrieking and beating his little chest with like a miniature prize fighter while clutching the star fruit in his other hand. This, of course, woke up the rest of the troop, and all hell broke loose. I had no idea that starfruit was such a favorite with small monkeys, as evidenced by the fact that we'd only bought one as an experiment, and this was the source of much discord. The fighting erupted the moment the others got a glimpse of Clyde hefting the prize over his head. Liz and I tried to wade into the fray to remove the offending fruit, but the Capuchin ended up clubbing Sandy the spider monkey with it before we wrested it from his little hands. In response, Danny, the male spider monkey, jumped on the Capuchin and started scratching at his face. I had to pull him off and spend the next hour holding him while Liz cuddled the female. Eventually, everybody calmed down, but the situation was pretty fraught for a while there. We decided it would be best to hide the starfruit in the cupboard and quietly dispose of it later. And starfruit would definitely be nixed from the shopping list thenceforth, just like cheese noms. Liz helpfully started a list of no-go foods and stuck it to the fridge with a magnet. Here ends the second reading. So that's up through chapter 9, and next time we will finish the story by reading chapters 10 through 13. So there we are. That's it. Ta-da! Yuki says Liz needs to find a ringmaster to help her. Agreed. I think that probably the macaque would make a great ringmaster. I think he's the biggest. Let me check. I have a whole list. I have a monkey list. And I have it listed in order of like main character. So the ones that get mentioned most are at the top and the ones that get mentioned the least are at the bottom. But then underneath that list, I have a list of them in order of size. So let's see. Oh, actually, no. The spider monkeys are the largest. They measure between 12 and 25 inches in height, and they weigh between 13 and 20 pounds. Whereas a rhesus macaque like Polly is 19 to 21 inches tall with a 9-inch tail and weighs only 12 to 17 pounds. So actually, yeah, the rhesus macaque is the second biggest, and the spider monkeys are actually the biggest. Go figure. Okay. Maybe the real monkeys are the friends we made along the way. I think you're right, David. This could be an after-school special. Tech says, yes, the way you read is really easy to listen to, even though it's a bad brain day. Oh, I'm so glad that it could be a nice thing for you to listen to on a bad brain day. I'm really, really glad because the story is a little chaotic. So I'm glad that you find the reading a good time. Yuki says, poop fight. Oh my. No, animals are always the boss. Always. Liz, he put an army of monkeys in your home and lets random people take the monkeys. Do not trust him. Agreed. Yuki, you know what's up. You have your moral compass thoroughly intact. Leo clearly does not. And you can tell that Liz is kind of like, well, this is a bad idea, but maybe I can help make it better. What do I do? Yuki says the story is so funny. Thank you, Yuki. I think the fruit is the friends we made all along, says JL. That's just confusing. I'm not sure a monkey should be a ringmaster. I think that would be too much power for a monkey. That's a good point, Yuki. But just think how cute a macaque would look in like a little tailcoat and a top hat. I mean, even if he wasn't actually doing all the ringmaster stuff, it would be a very good look, I believe. It's not as chaotic as my current situation. Well, I sincerely hope that your situation is less chaotic than 17 monkeys in an apartment, but I can certainly see that an actual story about those monkeys would be less chaotic than many situations. I hope. Oh, I wonder what it actually would be like to be surrounded by 17 monkeys. I think I would be very intimidated. I think that would be too many monkeys for me. I'd take the monkeys over internet angries any day. Oof. Yeah, the internet is less civilized than a group of monkeys, I think, generally speaking. There are certainly corners of the internet that are more civilized, but yeah, as a whole, the internet is kind of a free-for-all. Kind of a giant poo-flinging contest. A monkey dressed up as a clown would be super cute. So I guess it would depend on the type of monkey, because some monkeys have, just skin on their faces and not fur, and you could actually probably do some face paint as long as you found, like non-toxic face paint. But the ones with fur, probably just the outfit would have to suffice, I think. Renami says, you do such a great job reading the characters. Thank you. It is really fun to read your own characters because you know exactly how you think they would say it. like I have rehearsed all of this while writing and editing, so like I have it down. I would love to be around lots of monkeys, says Yuki. You're braver than me. I don't know. Monkeys have always freaked me out. I that was part of the challenge of writing this story, I guess. It was like confronting my fears. 17 monkeys jumping on a bed. One fell off and bumped his head. Poet that didn't know it. With a star fruit in hand. And fell off the bed. Especially because the detective never called me back and my ISP wasn't any help. I do not know what that means, but it sounds intense, and I am very hopeful that your situation gets less chaotic soon, Tech. I really love the monkey story a lot. No, I'm not brave at all. I just love monkeys. I don't know. I mean, everybody has their different things, right? That freak them out. For me, 17 monkeys would be a very scary situation. So in that way, especially, Yuki, you are very brave. And I'm trying to think. I mean, you're very brave in a lot of ways, Yuki, actually. You do art on the internet, which is a very brave thing to do. You went to the international or something, the clown convention or conference, which is awesome. I get very, very nervous at conferences and conventions. Like, I don't know if I would actually go to one just to meet people. That would be really scary for me. So the fact that you did that, I think is very brave. I would be very uncomfortable. And I have gone to conventions, obviously, but usually I only go if I have a thing to do. So like if I'm working at a table or I'm going to interview people, then I can do it. But if I just go as like a fan, I'm extremely uncomfortable in those situations. So yeah, there are a lot of ways that you're braver than I am, Yuki. There's probably a lot of ways that a lot of us are braver than the others. And if we really, break it all down, we'd be very impressed by everybody if we really knew all the brave things that they do. The monkey story is already one of my favorite books, says Yuki. That's awesome. Oh, excuse me. Gosh, I don't think I'm fully sick, but I'm not feeling super well, so the reading kind of took it out of me. Blah. The bravery bunch, says David. I just wanted to meet the clown, says Yuki. Yeah, that's pretty badass, is what I'm saying, Yuki. I know it doesn't seem super brave to you, maybe, but to me it does. So I think it counts. Tech says my PC and network are compromised. Oof. Ugh. Oh, that's rough. Well, thank you so much for being here, Tech. I hope that, this was a break from stress and that you got to have some fun. Hopefully got a few laughs in. And, when this is over, you can always turn the replay on too if you want if you want the company of 17 monkeys. Yeah, so I think I'm probably gonna get going because, like I said, I'm not feeling super hot. So the next and final reading from Monkey Maids is going to be not next Wednesday, but the following. I forget what the date is. Let's see. 5th, April 5th, I believe. It'll be at the same time, same place. Well, it'll be a slightly different link, but it's on the Oneshi Press Live page. And we will be finishing up the story, and I'll be taking feedback. And before we go, I would really love to hear if anyone has any thoughts, if there's any like, I don't know, if you were an editor, what would you tell me right now? Are there any scenes that you thought went on too long, or things that you think I should focus more on, or I don't know, anything, any kind of feedback? I am very open to constructive criticism at this point because I started writing this story a really long time ago. It was probably it was over a decade ago when I started writing this, and then I didn't look at it for a long time, came back to it and edited, and I have been editing kind of continuously for almost a year. And sometimes when you get that deep into something, it's kind of hard to see it objectively anymore. So I would really love to know if anyone feels like the pacing is off, or we're focusing too much on one thing and not on another thing. I may not actually make changes based on anybody's comments, but I really do want to know what people think, and you're sort of my inner circle. Do any of you have cats that sometimes make really funny noises when they're grooming themselves? Chell's like snorting. When they really get in there and they're like sorry, buddy, I'm telling everybody your private business. It was just so funny. I'm sure that it didn't get caught on the mic, but I wish it had. It was great. Okay. Wave hi to the creeps. Hi, creeps. I hope that you're enjoying the story. Not really. You should leave Tech alone. Okay, yeah, hopefully things get better, Tech. We're all on your side. At some point, I hope there's a part where they realize they are not prepared to handle monkeys and it is potentially dangerous. David is really wanting the reality to set in here. I wonder, David, if you met Leo at a party or something, what you would think. I bet your bullshit detector would go off immediately. I think Yuki too. You would call bullshit on Leo like that. You probably would just be like, yeah, you know what? We don't need to be friends, and walk away. But I bet you'd call him out in a moment. Shadowwind says, yes, my kitties do that too. Isn't it so funny? Their face is buried in there and their nose gets scrunched up. They start snorting. It's yeah, clean that fur. Tech says, I'm surprised at how easily she got on board. Yeah, so that's one of the things that I want it to be believable, right? So I think that what I need to do is make it clear that the relationship between these two is really they really care about each other. They want this to work because they want their relationship to work, whether it's as friends or lovers or whatever ends up working. They want to be together in some way, and Leo has forced this crazy situation. So Liz is well, what do I if it worked, it would be great, but there's no way it's gonna work. It can't work, but I want to give it a shot. So because we're looking at it from his perspective and not hers, I want to show a little bit of that struggle from her, but also make it clear that like he doesn't really know what's going on in her head. So I'm hoping that through their talks and through their interactions, you can get a little taste of that. But I don't want to get too heavy-handed with explaining her either, because that would make it feel unrealistic to me. So if anyone has thoughts on that, I'd love to hear them. Violet makes the most disgusting sounds, says Ted. I love cats are such clean animals. Not really. They're just covered in cat spit. I hope there's a clown in the story, says Yuki. I might be able to work that in. I certainly can't work in everything, but since they are getting rented out for parties, there seems to be. Ooh, I just had an idea. I might be able to work that in. Hang on. I gotta write this down. I'm not going to tell everybody what it is yet, so don't get your hopes up. But I'm just going to jot this down here so I don't forget. Because I forget everything I don't write down with an actual pen. Okay. I think reality doesn't set in Existentia, says JL. Reality of a sort. Tech says, I'd probably wander off because my red flag detector is broken, and you'd all be like, Tech, no. You could all see us all at the party. No, Tech. David says, she saw the money potential of the monkeys, and if they needed more money, it makes sense to me. Right, there's also that, like the whole money situation seems to be very tenuous for the two of them. He's in school. She's like a receptionist at a dentist's office. Clearly, I think there was something in the first part about how like their coffee table is actually an overturned cardboard box with like a scarf on it. Clearly money would be helpful. Tech says, but people with trauma tend to mentally crap fit themselves to any situation they want to work out. Yes, I think there's a lot of that going on. And it sounds like, based on what he told us about like the New Year's incident that he doesn't remember, like she's actually probably been traumatized by living with Leo. Like clearly he is not a stable person. And so whatever existing trauma she had has probably been compounded by this living situation. And yet she cares about him. She wants to stay around if she can, but she's not sure if it's going to work, I'm sure she doesn't want to get in trouble for having unlicensed monkeys. Yes, she is very concerned about that. Yeah, okay, I see that. Rose-colored glasses. Yeah, exactly. She's like, this is the stupid, like, part of her brain is being like, this is ridiculous. This is going to go badly. And then a part of her brain is like, but what if it doesn't? What if it's just great? Maybe we can work it out. She's probably also thinking like, okay, what do I have to do to get a license for these animals? Maybe I can make that happen. I don't know. Yeah, I thought Liz started going along with it because she seems to really like him. That's exactly what I'm going for, Yuki. And, Liz maybe should have better judgment about the people that she likes a lot. Maybe her red flag detector is broken, but she does. She really likes him. And, wouldn't it be cool if it did work? And they had a troop of monkeys, and they made a ton of money, and the monkeys were safe, and everybody was happy. Wouldn't that be great? Isn't there some alternate reality in which that could happen? Maybe it could be this reality. Maybe it'll work. We'll see. Okay, see where you're coming from now. We've all been there, trying to convince ourselves real hard that something bad is going to work out. Yeah, exactly. And who knows? This is Existentia. Rocks appear in people's living rooms sometimes. Maybe 17 monkeys in a 2-bedroom apartment will go fine. Who knows? This has been really, really helpful feedback, folks. Thank you. And, I have to recognize the fact that me being here, I can explain what I'm thinking. So I may be like spoon feeding a little bit, but it is always so interesting to get people's thoughts on something that you write, because I try really hard not to be too heavy-handed with explaining people's motivations, because I find that when I'm reading, if somebody like over explains something, I'm like, okay, like leave it alone. Like, let me do some of the mental work. But it's a really fuzzy line, and the line is different for every reader, you know? So I don't know. It's interesting to hear what people think. But I hope that I'm not like spoon feeding you too much, you know? Yuki says, Leo seems nice, but he should maybe get help from a zoo or circus to help with the monkeys. Totally agreed. Yes, that these monkeys should be in a zoo or somewhere where people like who know what they're doing are taking care of them. And the whole thing about them coming from the lab, completely made up. He lied to her face using a lie that he thought she would be likely to get on board with, which is not acceptable behavior. None of this is acceptable behavior. He is completely making stuff up and manipulating her. And clearly she's aware that he is capable of doing that, but she's like willing to go along with it for a little while and see what happens. Ted says, I feel like this is going to go off the rails with flying fecal matter real quick. Definitely, I felt the foreshadowing, says Shadowwind. Yeah, poo flinging is just a myth. They only do it when they don't have anything else to fling and they're agitated. That's what Leo says. So there's also something going on here that I'm realizing when I'm reading it out loud, which is that Leo has done quite a bit of research on the monkeys. Like when he bought them, you know, he's found out where they are native to, and you know what their species is like, and he's done research on what their mannerisms and facial expressions mean. So he's sort of, you know, he's not a monkey expert, but he is learning. And then meanwhile, Liz sort of comes in as the person who doesn't know anything about monkeys, but she watches Animal Planet. So she knows little tidbits here and there. So there's sort of, I think that Leo was kind of banking on knowing more about monkeys than she does, but it turns out she actually does know something about monkeys. So I do you think that that's a dynamic that's worth me sort of bumping up, like him being surprised by how much she knows and her being able to kind of call him out on some of his bullshit? Or do you feel like that's not necessary, maybe like an added level of complexity? So this was supposed to be like a 10-page story. It's now like 70 pages long. I tend to put in more than I need to. So I need other people to give me thoughts on whether it's worth me adding something new or not. Leo is sitting on so many lies. Yep. Yuki, and he thinks he's doing it for all the right reasons, you know, like it's going to be in everybody's best interest if she goes along with it, blah, blah, blah. But he's lying all over the place. He's lied to all of the clients. He made up a whole ridiculous story about where Sandy the spider monkey came from. And he's lying to Liz. He's lying to everybody about everything. Shadowwind says it is actually pretty impressive how much research he has done. Yeah, he's trying. He's trying. I like the idea, says Yuki. Okay, so like setting him up as not being as much of an expert as he thinks he is. Okay, I think I could work with that. That could sort of, it could also show a little bit more how like Liz is aware that he's full of shit and she's kind of choosing to let him be full of shit for now. I kind of like that dynamic, so maybe I'll bump it up a little. David says, I thought it was cool that she knew more about monkeys. It helps sell the idea of her going along with it. Perfect. Oh my gosh, David, that's exactly what I was just saying. All right, we're on the same page. Yuki says, those monkeys are going to mess up some poor person's event and then his lies will be over, right? Can you imagine, like, the risk there, right? If a monkey, like, injures somebody, or if a monkey gets injured, like, somebody's going to call the authorities of some kind. Like, this is the worst idea ever. Tex says, I'm more worried about the monkeys going with strangers, right? Yeah, so one detail that I actually am kind of proud of is how Liz is like, you're just letting them go with anybody who rents them, and he's like, oh no, of course I vet them first. And then like in his head he's like, yeah, I should probably do that. That's a good idea. Like, oh my God, dude, you didn't even think about this? Then again, like, what vetting process? I mean, maybe you could like make people fill out a questionnaire about how to care for monkeys, and if they get more than 1 out of 5 questions wrong, then they can't do it, or like, but how would you? Leo has not thought this through. That's basically the point. Yeah, that's pretty worrisome, says Shadowwind. Leo studying monkeys is the main thing holding together the logic for me, says David. It shows he does have at least some idea what he's doing, whether he's licensed or not. Right. So, like, you can tell, like, the thing is, Leo's one of those people, and we've all known people like this, right? Like, he's not out to hurt anyone. He's not trying to do anything harmful. He thinks that he has everybody's best interests at heart, that this is going to be so fun for him and Liz, it's going to bring them closer together to have a project to work on, and that the monkeys are just going to have a blast. It's going to be wonderful. Like, he honestly thinks that that is the case. But, like, the rest of us are all sitting here like, oh my God, this is going to go so horribly wrong. Like, he's well-intentioned, but in order to make the things happen that he thinks are going to be great, he's willing to lie and put everybody in danger. And that's a very dangerous kind of person, right? Like, you know, at least if he had actual evil intentions, then it would be like, oh, there's a bad person, stay away from him. But it's not that simple. He's actually kind of complex in his own bizarro way. Tex says, oh my God, I've dated this guy, I swear. I might have too, Tech. that might be where this is coming from. David wants this to be logical so badly, says JL. Yes, and I appreciate it, because so I really like reading stories where there are these completely ridiculous aspects of the story. Like, clearly this would not happen ever. But what if it did? And let's run with it. And I want it to feel actually mostly realistic, except for these very clearly not realistic aspects of the story. So, like, for Dwayne, it's like, yeah, this rock showed up. What now? Let's talk about it like it's realistic, except for the fact that the rock showed up and then starts moving around the house. Here, it's monkeys. Let's just see what happens. But I do want it to have enough of this feeling of realism to it that it grips you and it makes you feel like, what would I do? I know people who work with animals for events, but they go with the animals and stay with them, right? Oh, Yuki, you're so good. That's actually going to come up in the next section. Liz is going to demand that they start going to events with the monkeys. And Leo's going to be like, absolutely not. That ruins the whole business model. So it's going to be a whole thing. Is anything about existing logical in the year of our chaos 2023? Excellent question, Tech. And I think the answer is pretty much no. David says, I see what you mean. I totally get that. I am sure I was right, or whoever said it was right, but I don't know what you're referring to. That sounds like the best policy, Yuki. Totally agreed. Absolutely. These monkeys need oversight. Ideally from like a licensed and trained person, but if nothing else, at least from people who know them. Tech says, yeah, but not everyone who uses those tactics is aware that they are doing it. If it's all you've learned, it's all you've learned. Exactly. Not everybody who lies and cons and is harmful to people is aware that that's what they're doing. That's just how they live. I love all the fun, silly parts a lot, says Yuki. Yeah, so like there is a lot of, like there's some serious issues going on here, but there's also 17 monkeys. Yeah, so starfruit, turns out they're a big deal in Monkeyland. I don't know why, but the monkeys went bananas over them. I actually originally had a much worse fight breaking out over the starfruit, but I decided to keep things moving along so the starfruit doesn't become quite as much of the center of attention. I also figure, the point of the story is not watching monkeys fight each other. It's just a funny thing to see happen from time to time, as long as nobody gets seriously injured. And people who work with animals for events do have people sign stuff pretty much saying they know the animal may poop and guests need to be careful around animals and stuff. Can you imagine if you had like a petting zoo and somebody tried to like sue you or something because the animal pooped? It is. I shouldn't laugh. There are a lot of people who don't really have any experience with animals and are not prepared for what being around animals is like. And I know that that's a real thing because I grew up, in the country and around a lot of farms. And my dad's a veterinarian, and I know a lot about animals. But when I went to college in New York City, I met a lot of people who like really had never been around animals. I actually took one of them to the county fair where I grew up because I wanted to see how she would react. She actually handled it way better than I thought she would, but she was amazed by how big the cows were. She was like, I asked her how big she thought cows were, and she pointed at the sheep. She was like, I thought they were like that big. And I was like, oh no, those are sheep. She was like, oh my God, they're really big. I didn't know that sheep got that big either. That's what I learned in DBT. Sometimes I slide back into that stuff still when distressed and I don't notice it right away. Well, that's the whole thing about, like working on yourself and growing and therapy and that kind of stuff is like this, the behaviors that come naturally to you or what you learn early in life. It's really hard to break those behaviors. I would imagine that if Leo decided that he was going to, start getting help with that stuff, it would be really hard for him to not just lie to people's faces because that's just what he does. And the way that his brain works, I think sometimes he knows when he's lying, but not all the time. And that's legit. That is a way that people operate in the world, and just do the best that you can with it, I suppose. I love animals a lot, says Yuki. I know. And I love, Yuki, that you're just on the monkey side. You're like, whatever, Leo's whatever, Liz is whatever. I'm here for the monkeys. Which is how you should be. If you're going to have a monkey-based business, you should be focusing primarily on the health and well-being of the monkeys. Although, to be fair, he did nix dairy products and starfruit from their diet when he realized that they were causing problems. So, hey, he's learning. And he's really invested in making sure that they're well groomed and keeping the place clean. Like, he's trying, he's just not the whole way there. All right, folks. Thank you so much for all of your feedback. If anyone has thoughts about things that didn't come up in chat today, feel free to get in touch with me on Discord or email or Facebook or wherever you correspond with people. If you have thoughts, if you have questions, I will be back on April 5th for the last reading of the story. And then I will spend approximately a month getting sort of the final edit done. And then we have a tentative date set of May 2nd for launching a Kickstarter to fund printing of the book and production of the audiobook version that I will be reading. So we'll see. There's a chance that might get moved. But if everything goes according to plan, we will be launching the Monkey Maids Kickstarter for basically the month of May. So from May 2nd to 30th or something like that. So I'll be back here on the 5th to read part 3 and wrap up the story. Poo doesn't faze me. Big family, many pets, says Tech, right? If you're going to have a lot of pets, you got to get comfortable with pee-pee poo-poo. Cows are way huge up close. Cows are huge. When I was a kid, my dad worked for Penn State University in their veterinary department, and they had an entire barn full of Holstein bulls. So most of the bulls that people see generally, in fields and on farms, are usually beef cattle. So there's not really a whole lot of different breeds there, but they're big boys, big scary dudes. But Holsteins, the spotted cows that are usually used for milk, usually the males are not allowed to grow up. They are usually slaughtered. I'm sorry. Trigger warning, before they get very big, because Holstein bulls are huge. They get massive. Like, granted, when I met them, I was actually probably not that much smaller than I am now, but I was a kid, so I was pretty little. But I don't know. They had to have been at least a ton each. And they had the rings through their nose because they're literally so big, and they're so willful that the only way you can get them to like pay attention to you is if you have to yank on their nose thing. Like, if they're upset, there's no way that you're gonna get them to do what you want. Oh, hi, Chow. He's climbing up me. Hi, buddy. And they're mean. So a lot of the time, they don't. That's why you don't see Holstein bulls on farms. They are big, 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 big boys and extremely difficult to handle. I know a lot about cows. My dad is a veterinarian who worked primarily with dairy cattle, and my sister is now a veterinarian in central Montana who works primarily with beef cattle. So I just know a lot about cows. If you bring up cows, I'm gonna go off on some tangent. I apologize. All right. Cows are huge up close. Animal poop doesn't bother me, but if it's from a human, I'm out. Correct. Agreed. Tech says, like, when you're raised by Karens, like, you become a Karen. I'm still unlearn my colonial conservative upbringing. Yeah, that is a long process, but it's an awesome process, and good on you for taking those steps, Tech. That is hard stuff, and you are actually very brave for doing it. Lots of people do not have the bravery to work on that stuff because it's tough. So good on you. I want to hug cows. They are so cute, says Yuki. Yuki, I feel like you hanging out with a baby cow you would have so much fun. They're so sweet. And a lot of cows are just sweet animals too. Like, they're very loving, I think. All but 2 of my cousins are younger than I am, says Tech. Many diapers. My mom had 4 sisters, so there's a lot of uncles and dogs and kids. Yeah. Yeah, you gotta get comfy with poo sometimes. Yeah. If you have a cat. Oh, Jael is in the other room, and he is opening something crinkly, and Chalathor is like, treats! I must go! Okay. All right, folks. Thank you for being here. Hopefully, I will see many of you again on April 5th, and we'll find out what happens with all of the monkeys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. See you again in 2 weeks. Bye!